Cleared for takeoff. Cleared for takeoff.
Ukraine seems to have started a real hunt for tankers that are illegally transporting Russian oil, thereby filling the Russian budget. Vladimir Putin's shadow fleet, which he uses to illegally trade oil, is going under. In the Black Sea, near the Turkish coast, an oil tanker named Kairos, which was heading to Russia, allegedly hit a mine. The vessel, which is under sanctions from the United Kingdom and the European Union for transporting Russian oil, was damaged as a result of the explosion and the subsequent fire. Just a couple of hours later, another tanker called Verat was blown up in the Black Sea. Both tankers are illegal and had no right to transport oil in international waters, but they were actively delivering oil to India, for example, bypassing sanctions. Now they won't be able to, and it looks like the same fate may await other tankers of the Shadow Fleet. And I'm not just talking about the hunt here for no reason. It's worth mentioning that just 4 days ago, for example, the Royal Navy of the United Kingdom intercepted the Russian corvette Stoiky and the tanker Elnya as they were passing along the British coast. Moreover, the British demonstratively escorted these Russian vessels, not allowing them to deviate from their route. At the beginning of this month, Ukrainian drones struck Tuapse, where several tankers also caught fire. And now the Americans are actively pursuing Shadow Fleet tankers near Britain and Venezuela, essentially driving these tankers away from the coast of those countries. And now some experts suggest that sanctions against Russia's Shadow Fleet have simply moved to a new level. I'm Alexei Pecci. Let's discuss this together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, write any detailed comment under this episode, and subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pecci News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish operational news as soon as it comes in. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with any donation or paid sponsorship subscription using the links and details in the description of this video. I would be grateful for any support from you.
Until we meet again.
Please help me. We just went through a drone attack. Virosi in the mouth.
Moisey, almost all follows.
So, the main maritime authority of Turkey reported today that in the Black Sea, near the Turkish coast. By the way, not far from the Bosphorus, the oil tanker Kairos, which was heading to Russia, hit a mine. The vessel, which is under sanctions from the United Kingdom and the European Union for transporting Russian oil, was damaged as a result of the explosion and the subsequent fire. Later, Turkish authorities also reported a similar incident with a second tanker, Verat. Both vessels were reportedly sailing without cargo at the time of the incident, and rescue ships were dispatched to assist the damaged tankers. The Russians sent their own tankers to help with the rescue, and the Turkish authorities did as well. According to vessel tracking service data, Kairos was returning to a Russian port for loading after a trip from Novorossiysk to Paradip, India, carrying a shipment of Urals crude oil. The tanker Verat, which by the way is under sanctions from both the United States, the European Union and the United Kingdom for transporting Russian oil, spent most of the year idle in the western part of the Black Sea, after being added to the United States sanctions list on January 10th, and now, according to Tribeca Shipping, the tanker Kairos is at risk of sinking after hitting a mine. At the same time, as noted, shipping traffic through the Bosphorus Strait has not been interrupted and continues as usual. And this is where things get really interesting. The official version of the accident is that the tanker hit a mine. On the one hand, in recent years there have indeed been multiple incidents in the Black Sea where ships have hit sea mines, as well as cases of drifting mines being discovered. But on the other hand, this raises a question. Did really two tankers hit a mine on the same day? More or less in the same area and more or less at the same time. Quite an interesting coincidence, isn't it? And I want to emphasize, Russian military correspondents are writing that in fact one of the tankers was attacked by 5 unmanned boats, that is sea drones. Supposedly the strike hit the engine room of the tanker, as a result of which that compartment is flooding. Well, as it became known later, we're talking specifically about the tanker Kairos, even though Kairos was sailing under the flag of Gambia. By the way, it was recently removed from the country's ship registry for certificate fraud, and thus it is currently not registered to any country. It's essentially an ownerless tanker, so if it sinks, it's not a big issue. There were 19 Russians on board. Well, what difference does it make anyway? Besides, by the same decision, the Virat tanker and another 70 ships were also stripped of the right to sail under the Gambian flag. In short, both Kairos and Virat, they're basically ownerless. According to open data, Kairos has repeatedly entered ports in Russia, Turkey, China, India, and occupied Crimea. It has finally been punished. I hope, like Virat, it sinks to the bottom. And now, let me explain why I said at the beginning that a real hunt for Russian tankers has been declared. And here I remind you that on November 2, at least 4 oil tankers and a Transneft oil terminal were damaged after a drone attack on the port of Tuapse. At that time, among the listed damaged vessels, at least 2 tankers were from the Russian Shadow Fleet. On November 21, it became known that one of the 4 tankers delivering Russian oil to Venezuela had already failed to enter the country 3 times due to the interference of an American destroyer, and now it is behaving unusually. We're talking about a vessel from the Shadow Fleet called Seahorse, which appears on several sanctions lists. The tanker Seahorse, flying the Cameroon flag, was en route to Venezuela carrying fuel. But back on November 13, it was forced to change course to Cuba after the American destroyer United States ship Stockdale openly blocked its path. The warship then proceeded along the borders of Venezuelan territorial waters toward Puerto Rico. After that, the tanker Seahorse tried twice more to approach Venezuela, but both times it turned back because it saw the American destroyer on the horizon. And now it's still idling in the Caribbean Sea. According to Ukrainian intelligence, the tanker Seahorse has repeatedly entered ports in occupied Crimea. On November 24, the Royal Navy of the United Kingdom intercepted the Russian corvette Stoiky and the tanker Elnya as they were passing along the British coast. The patrol ship Her Majesty's Ship 7 tracked the movement of the Russian vessels through the Dover Strait and further west for 2 weeks. Later, the observation was handed over to a NATO ally named Nina off the coast of Brittany. Before that, the United Kingdom sent 3 of its newest P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft to Iceland as part of a larger NATO mission to monitor the movement of Russian ships and submarines in the North Atlantic and the Arctic. According to the British Ministry of Defense, the number of Russian ships passing near British waters has increased by 30% over the past 2 years. Earlier, the British authorities reported the repeated appearance of the Russian oceanographic vessel Yantar near British waters, which Western experts consider to be an intelligence ship capable of deploying underwater vehicles. This vessel was seen off Britain's coast in November 1924 and January 1925. And let me remind you, just last week, the head of the United Kingdom Ministry of Defense, John Hilly, stated that the crews of P-8 Poseidon aircraft had encountered laser blinding from this ship, Yantar. After that, patrol aircraft were involved in monitoring the vessel. And Hilly described Yantar's activities as a potential threat, and stated that London was ready to respond to any actions by Russia. And after all that, on November 28, 2 tankers from the Russian Shadow Fleet mysteriously hit mines on the same day in the same area. Here, I think there's something to think about. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone. To be continued.